according to Woj, John Wall and Russell Westbrook will be trading places. Westbrook will go to Washington, and Wall will go to Houston along with a first-round pick in 2023, a protected first-round pick, according to Woj, to Houston. You look at both of these guys. Both of these guys are owed $132 million at this point. Wall is 30, Westbrook is 32. You look at the situation, and it just appeared that both guys needed maybe that change of scenery. You look at the situation with John Wall, especially Wall. It was reported that Wall wanted to trade, wanted to get out of Washington. In terms of Washington, they said they weren't looking to trade Wall. Wall was asked at a charity event if he wanted to be traded. He said no comment. So you knew that no comment usually means that, yes, he wants to be traded. And let's be real. You look at John Wall over the past few seasons, injuries have been an issue. He's coming off a torn Achilles. So it's very difficult to come off an Achilles injury and be the same player. Apparently, Scott Brooks is saying that Wall does still have his speed. He's still fast. He can still do some of the things that he once did. But you look at John Wall and you ask yourself, if you're the Wizards, can you trust him in terms of him being that guy? Can you trust that he will be back to his old form? That's difficult coming off all those injuries. And you look at the situation with Westbrook. I mean, if you're the Wizards, you needed a jolt. Washington needed a jolt. That building needed a jolt. The fan base needed a jolt. The team needed a jolt. And I'm not saying Westbrook is going to be better than Wall, and I'm not going to say Wall is going to be better than Westbrook. In terms of availability, Westbrook has been the more available player over the years. And so we look at it from that standpoint. I know Westbrook is 32 and Wall's 30, but again, Westbrook has been the more available player. And so with that, you look at him being more available. You look at him still putting up decent numbers, still playing at a decent level. And, it's not a bad situation for him. And it's not a bad situation. Both guys, I think, needed a change. I think both guys needed a change. Look at Westbrook last year, still 27 points, still averaged almost 8 rebounds, 7.9, still averaged 7 assists. So the numbers are still there. He's still a stat sheet stuffer. So I think you look at Washington, and I thought with John Wall coming into the season, they re-signed Bertans. They got Rui Hachimura out there, I think is going to be an improved player this year. He's a rookie, played well last year. So you got that. I thought Washington with Wall was going to make the playoffs in the East. And I think Washington with Westbrook is going to make the playoffs in the East. Washington could be an interesting team. I'm not saying that's a team that can be a title contender, but I think it could be an interesting team. You remember, before the injuries with Wall, a few seasons before that, they were in the conference semifinals, right? And they lost to the Celtics, I believe, in 7. So it's not a bad basketball team with Wall and Beal. I know the year before that was kind of a struggle for those guys, but the year before that, they weren't in the playoffs and were in the Eastern Conference semifinals and easily could have made it to the Eastern Conference finals. So I look at Washington now. Washington, to me, with this move, they were a playoff team with Wall, and I still think they're a playoff team with Westbrook, and they could even be better. You look at it also. Scott Brooks coached Westbrook in Oklahoma City. So Brooks, on some level, knows what Westbrook brings. Not on some level. He knows what Westbrook brings to the table. And obviously, he was comfortable enough with this move to pull the trigger. So it should be interesting to see what happens with both of these teams. You look at the Rockets, what's next? Is this the beginning of the Harden trade, or do you trot out Harden a Wall? We'll see what the Rockets are going to do. They did bring in Christian Wood in the offseason. We'll see what Houston's going to do. Does this mean that this is the beginning of a rebuild? I mean, both guys make the same amount of money, so it's a wash in terms of that. But you do get that first-round pick, a protected first-round pick, according to Woj in 2023. So that's something. That's an asset. So what happens with Houston next should be interesting. But you're looking at Washington with Westbrook, with Beal, with the guys that they have. That's a playoff team, and we'll see what they can do. We'll see if Scotty Brooks and Westbrook can work their magic again. Those two did come together, and those two did make it to the NBA Finals. So those guys have had some magic together. So we'll see what happens. Westbrook, Wall, trading places, and it should be interesting how that whole situation works out.